on softwood lumber. Now he says, who cares? Well, conservatives cared. Within 80 days of the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, taking office, he managed to eliminate American tariffs on softwood lumber and get refunds of them.
The Liberal Party is getting desperate, and of course, Mark Carney is proof of that, especially how he behaved today in the House of Commons. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name's Sterling. Mark Carney and his Trained Seal caucus were very lively in the House of Commons today because Mark Carney's comment of how he doesn't care what happens to Canadians and that he has no pressing issue to deal with Donald Trump. They were trying to put that fire out, something fierce that has taken off across this country and has isolated many of the voters that Mark Carney is hoping to rely on. Of course, they'll not come back because they see the truth of it. I mean, it's not like that comment was isolated. Everybody knows that he made promises on the campaign trail. Promises that in the House of Commons today, he completely tried to dodge and he tried to stretch the truth to the point where, in my opinion, he flat out lied, and you'll hear him from his own mouth say it. But I'm sure that what he's saying is not like this, just not the truth. It's not even close to the truth. It's an actual straight up opposite of the truth. Pierre Poilievre was trying to keep his feet to the fire, and Mark Carney had to use the same old bag of tricks that the Liberals have, which is nothing, right? It's not anything but a bunch of words, and I suppose it appeals to people who care about drama more than they care about the state of their lives. But for the most of Canada, we're trying to stay focused on how we can fix the problems. Mark Carney is not doing any of that, and I think we can all agree.
Since the Prime Minister was elected promising, quote, to negotiate a win with the U.S., American tariffs on autos, aluminum, and steel have doubled, and on Canadian lumber, they've tripled. Not a single American tariff has been reduced since he promised he would reduce them. And now he says, who cares? Yep. Mr. Speaker, I care about the 3,000 auto workers that I met on the picket line in Brampton who are out of a job. I care about the 8 mills that have closed because the Prime Minister failed to deliver a deal. The workers on those lines, they care. Canadians care. Why doesn't the Prime Minister care?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, since I became Prime Minister, Canada has secured the lowest tariffs of any country in the world. On 85% of our goods, the tariffs are zero. Yes, Mr. Speaker, there are sectors, the auto sector, the steel sector, the lumber sector, the aluminum sector, that are under pressure. We care. We're acting in those sectors. There will be announcements this week to further support.
More announcements. Isn't that all he's been doing since the beginning of his tenure? Isn't that all the Liberals have been doing for the last 10 years? I want to drill down on the lie. Well, what I'm considering to be very untrue. That deal was put in place before he became Prime Minister. The deal with the Kuzma, the tariffs that are 85% covered under that deal were put in place long before Mark Carney became Prime Minister. So since he's became Prime Minister, on the trade front, only the tariffs have changed. On the steel, on the aluminum, on many of the other products that, we can talk about, lumber and all the rest of that. Those have changed, but the rest of the products have not altered. Anything covered under Kuzma has been off limits to Donald Trump. He made that statement out loud. Mark Carney trying to take credit for it, though. That speaks to a desperation. That speaks to, he wants to take that singular statement, no matter what the facts are, and he's going to try to put that out there and convince people that he's doing something that he is not, which in my opinion is dishonest. And this is supposed to be a room full of honorable people. You can't tell lies. That's a contradiction. You cannot be honorable and be dishonest. They simply don't go together. They are complete opposites of one another. The character of the person matters. And it's time that we started to expose that, or at least enlighten Canadians about the idea that if our leadership is corrupted, how can we not have the entire top end of our country be corrupted? I don't like the way that he tried to take credit for this 85%. And I don't believe Donald Trump is going to give a hoot about USMCA any minute now. He's going to announce that he's not coming back to the table, and then Mark Carney will have no answers, no solutions. Oh, we're going to make announcements this week. What does that mean? You've already given them all billions of Canadian taxpayers' dollars. You got no way to replace those jobs. So stop trying to pretend that you do. Get out of the way.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Before the election, he promised elbows up. After, it was who cares? Yeah. Before the election, he said the tariffs were an existential crisis. Now he says they're not a burning issue. Before the election, he promised to negotiate a win. After, he backed down to American tariffs, and those tariffs have now doubled on Canadian aluminum, autos, and steel, and tripled on Canadian lumber. Before the election, he promised the fastest growing economy in the G7. After, he delivered the fastest shrinking economy. Why is the Prime Minister before the election so much different than the one after?
Yeah. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on the night of the election, when I had the great honor from my constituents of being elected as a deputy of this House, unlike some others in the chamber today, I made a promise to Canadians. When I make a mistake, I'll admit it. That was a poor choice of words about a serious issue. And the serious issue is what progress are we making structurally? Best deal in the world, strongest budget in the world, and the most new trade deals in the world.
The most new trade deals in the world. Yeah, you haven't even signed one. You got one with the Philippines, I think. Donald Trump signed more in a week than you signed in your entire tenure. What an absurd thing to say.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister did make a mistake. He's made many mistakes. In fact, it's been nothing but mistakes when it's come to trade. Look at it. This Prime Minister promised that he would negotiate a win on softwood lumber. Now he says, who cares? Well, Conservatives cared. Within 80 days of the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, taking office, he managed to eliminate American tariffs on softwood lumber and get refunds of them. This Prime Minister has now had 8 months, and those tariffs have now more than tripled. Prime Minister asks, who cares? I can tell you, on behalf of all the MPs on this side, we care about the jobs that are being lost in Lumbertown. Why doesn't he?
Mr. Speaker, this government cares about creating jobs in this country. That's why we proposed a budget before this House that catalyzes $1 trillion of investment over 5 years. The member opposite and his colleagues, those who could make it into the room, voted against that budget, voted against Canadian workers, voted against Canada's future. We believe in this country, Mr. Speaker, and we are building it.
Honourable
Rhetoric. No, he just said absolutely nothing. What he said was the same thing he's been saying for months. Catalyze. Oh, I'm going to have $1 trillion worth of investment in the next 5 years. Honest, it's coming. Don't worry about it. You got nothing. Anybody with any money to invest is not investing in these environmental and bureaucratic laws that are in the way of making a profit. And we all know it. You're not doing a thing. And I think it's time you just accept that and get out of the way.
Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Chinese, American, Indian, and other tariffs have only gone up since the Prime Minister began his 28-trip journey around the world. He hasn't had a single solitary win. In fact, the only wins he's had are for Brookfield. Just days after he met with the president, Trump signed on to $80 billion of nuclear purchases from Brookfield. And then he gave $500 million of our tax money to the European Space Agency located on Brookfield's campus. Why is it that whenever he spends his time and our money, Canadians end up poor and he and Brookfield end up richer?
Mr. Speaker, not for the first time, the Leader of the Opposition needs to check his numbers. The government of Indonesia is reducing tariffs on 95% of Canadian goods. Canada has the best deal with the United States. 85% of our goods are tariff-free. The United Arab Emirates is just confirmed that they want to invest $70 billion in this country.
Wow.
They believe in Canada's future. Why don't the members of
The United Arab Emirates are currently involved in a genocide in the African country of Sudan, by all accounts. And by all accounts, I mean there's hardcore proof. I might cover it because if this guy thinks that this 70 billion is somehow 1 trillion, and I'm not sure how any of that money is going to help Canadians that are on the picket lines with automotives right now. Let's face it, the Liberals are sitting on their hands. As for this 95% tariff reduction with Indonesia, well, isn't that an interesting thing? I mean, I guess all our problems are solved. We can simply drive all of the product that we trade with Indonesia on a regular basis down it. Oh, wait a minute. Indonesia is very, very far away, and you have to put it on a boat. And I'm not sure that the country itself is the consumer behemoth that the United States is, because let's be straightforward, the United States is a massive, enormous economy due to the fact that they have, freedom, capitalism. I don't think Indonesia is going to offset that. But that's the desperation on display. That's what he got. 28 trips around the world, and he's got a memorandum of understanding from a country that's currently embroiled in some fairly nasty war, and another trade deal with a country on the bottom half of the planet that really doesn't have much of an economy to speak of.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Right, and he arrived just a few days after Brookfield's CEO, lining up with the same interests that are not Canadian interests, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of Canadian interests, this Prime Minister opposed the pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific, just like his Liberal predecessor blocked that same pipeline. On Thursday, he'll make one of his grand announcements, waving around a meaningless so-called memorandum of understanding. If it's anything other than a public relations ploy, why won't he say on what date will construction begin on a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific?
Here, here.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes the question reveals everything. The memorandum of understanding that we're negotiating with Alberta creates necessary conditions, but not sufficient conditions, because we believe in cooperative federalism. We believe the government of British Columbia has to agree. We believe that First Nations right holders in this country have to agree and support. All stakeholders have to back. That's one Canada.
That's not the state of democracy, because if that was the situation, then every time the Liberals try to cram down things like dentistry into our throats, they wouldn't sit down. But look at Philip Champagne's face. I paused here on purpose. I mean, he is staring at himself on TV, this gigantic monitors, and he's literally looking at himself on camera to see if he can get the screenshot that he's looking for. All of a sudden now, British Columbia has to be part of the decision-making process. And I'm going to be revisiting this comment about the First Nations, because the railway, this electric thing that they want to, high-speed rail they want to cram in between Quebec and Toronto, Quebec City and Toronto, they don't ask anybody's permission, including the people that own the land. So if the First Nations get a say, then a person who owns anything in this country must have a say. Anyway, everybody, I think that we need to understand that Mark Carney and the Liberal government becomes more and more desperate with every minute, not to prove themselves, but to just make sure that you don't realize just how badly they are behaving and just how badly they can't perform up to the standards that they promised you. That your standard of living is going to continue to go downward while Mark Carney and his Brookfield friends continue to get wealthy. And the state of the country is going to get torn to pieces over the fact that Mark Carney thinks that he can capitalize on all of that oil for his friends instead of having it sent to the coast of British Columbia, instead of having it sent to everywhere, because the world wants it and we have it, and we should also be getting wealthy off it, not just the United Arab Emirates, who are making so much money off oil that they have billions of dollars to invest in Canada. You know what's an interesting thing about the United Arab Emirates? They have 90% of their land mass is arid, which means they can't grow anything in there. The one product that they don't have, they have all that oil and all that money. They don't have any food. And yet this guy can't get a deal made. I mean, it's preposterous. I'm going to wrap here. You leave me your comments down in the comments section. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next time.